Welcome back. So the South African National Defence Force has been deprived of over 54 billion rand in funding over the past 15 years, with the money redirected to other departments and struggling state-owned entities. This was revealed by Dakota Legoete, the chairperson for the Parliamentary Committee on Defence, who warned that the chronic underfunding has weakened the SANDF, leaving the country vulnerable and unable to maintain or upgrade its aging infrastructure and personnel. And he now joins us in studio to have this conversation. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Where did we turn? Where did things go wrong?
Good morning, Adrian, and good morning to all the viewers at home. Look, we turned things off the direction when we decided to repurpose the budget of the National Defence Force for other priorities. For instance, over 10 billion rand of the National Defence Department was taken from the Special Defence account to fund Fees Must Fall. Almost over the past years, 44 billion rand of our budget was taken to fund and bail out state-owned enterprises like ESCOM, like SAA and others, including SABC and other broadcasters, which fall within the ambit of the state. But that is now a chronic effect to the extent that basic things that we need to do as the National Defence Force are affected, and that places us in a position which is very precarious to an extent that we are making the country vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. To what extent?
Look, you would see, in our country, we are the only country where 29,000 citizens die in the hands of criminals, according to Stats SA and the police statistics. And there is no war here for so many people to be killed in the hands of criminals. You'd see, in an instance, it's a known fact of the porous borders. Mm-hmm. Now, as the National Defence Force, in terms of Section 200, subsection 2, we are responsible to defend the Republic, its people. We are responsible to ensure that there is territorial integrity and defend the sovereignty, the Constitution and international laws. Mm-hmm. And by territorial integrity, we mean the land, the sea, the cosmos, the spectrum, the animals, the people, the insects, the rivers, the streets of the Republic. And that is within our mandate, national key points and ports of entries. That is what is meant by territorial integrity. And once we are underfunded, we will fail in some of the instances because we need also to modernize our equipments. For instance, today wars are no longer fought like before. Wars are fought through electronic, through artificial intelligence and robotics. We need to modernize to get to that particular equipment. Now there are new challenges. South Africans are scammed every day by cyber fraud, promises of crypto, promises of forex, promises of whatever coin. You get an SMS, WhatsApp, email, that promise you lucrative monies. Mm. You get a link, you get into that link, give them your banking detail and lose those monies. Now we need to create a capacity on cybersecurity unit within the defense intelligence. That will not come cheap, so that we save South Africans from this particular cyber fraud and cyber crimes. And all these capabilities, we need to modernize. You all saw with the warfare in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, it's mostly electronic, it's mostly artificial intelligence. You no longer take soldiers like before. You can send other things through drones, through robots and other things. That's electronic warfare. We need to modernize. And that's why we are saying we need to recruit new young people that will face in over a period so that they learn from the old and the new, can breed and blend well with the old. And that transition would help us to bring capabilities and to rejuvenate our National Defence Force.
Yeah, and even the recruitment of those soldiers. Currently, we are standing at, what, fewer than 2,000 a year, when we should be looking at about 20,000. But I want to speak around the wisdom of, because these are budgets that go through a vote, parliamentary process. They are also ideologically informed, I'd like to believe. The ANC has been the governing party for the past 30 years, if we speak about governing alone, before the government of national unity. What informed the particular wisdom that says that with everything that you've outlined now, what the priorities of the South African National Defence Force or any military for that country is, to say that let's rather underfund the South African National Defence Force, even where we have taken decisions before that has gone against the wisdom of experts back in 1996, 1997, with the strategic defence package, which we referred to as the arms deal. Back then, the argument from some experts was saying that, no, spend more money on social initiatives. But the wisdom of the ANC was that, no, actually, we need to spend money on the National Defence Force. Then what changed?
Look, you need to understand, there are three aspects which are anchors of state governance. Any state loses legitimacy once it can feed its people, once it can grow or develop its people, and once it can defend its people. State governance, it's about those three aspects. You fail in any one of them, you lose your legitimacy and become a failed state. Now, in South Africa, after that particular supply chain process, there was an outcry, thinking that spending money on defense is a wastage, and forget that once you don't defend your country, you make it vulnerable, you'll get porous borders, you'll get crime on the streets, and you'll get problems where South Africans today live in fear. And we can't continue in this way. We need to turn the tide around, lest we become a failed state, where people will live in fear, in high fences, in electric fences, others even walking around with bodyguards because the state can't provide the basic defense and security apparatus to defend the taxpayers, the voters, and the citizen. And we can't. It's unfair to South Africans for 29,000 of them to die in the hands of criminals when we have a National Defence Force, when we have a police and the intelligence in the country. But part of the problem that you don't get a maximum response and output from this institution, it's because of the underfunding of the security cluster or the defense. And we can't continue this way. For proper economic growth, for proper education, for proper healthcare, the prerequisite is the defense, is the safety of citizens in any country.
Was it deliberate? And what I'm trying to get to here also is that to what extent does the ANC, as the governing party and now as the party that's leading government, take responsibility for those decisions that were taken?
Unfortunately, I can't speak on behalf of the ANC.
But you're a member of the ANC.
I'm here as the portfolio committee chair.
Yes, but you're a member of the ANC has put you there as the chairperson of that portfolio committee.
Yes, but you must understand, defense cut across political line, cut across ideological line. Defense, it's about all citizens. It's about patriotism. It's about common purpose to ensure that
but the budgets wouldn't have been passed if the ANC didn't have the majority and pushed through those budgets wouldn't have gone through. So, and that's the reason when I started the conversation, I said from an ideological perspective, what gets passed and voted on also informs the ideology of a certain political party, like the ANC as an example. So to what extent does the ANC take responsibility for the state of the South African National Defence Force? All ministers of the SANDF have been members of the members of the African National Congress. Yeah,
but that's why I took you through what we call state governance. It's true that government in the past made some wrong policy choices in terms of repurposing the budget, thinking that there are competing needs and you can make these needs to suffer at the expense of the other need. And it's a problem. For instance, taking money from the defense to bail out SOEs because some of the board or executives were incompetent to bring dividends in their companies. It was wrong. And it was a wrong policy choice.
Again, the deployment committee of the ANC, we can speak about Denel as an example. It's the ANC again. Goes back to the African National Congress.
Yeah, that's why I said, I would not want to speak on the cap of the African National Congress. I was invited on a cap of a portfolio chair of defense. In the portfolio committee, there are other parties which may not be comfortable with what I was about to say on behalf of the ANC.
Okay,
so
let me put it this way. Okay, let me put it this way then. As the chairperson of the portfolio committee, to what extent do you believe the African National Congress should take responsibility for choices that have been made in the past that have brought us to where we are currently?
Look, I think it's a broader issue we need to take to government. Government in the past made some wrong policy choices, which some of those wrong policy choices have a negative or adverse impact to the capacity of the state, in particular our National Defence Force, as our national pride, to an extent that the underfunding has affected some of our capabilities, to an extent even that some of our armored vehicles, some of our helicopters, some of our vessels, some of our military equipments are becoming obsolete. And secondly is that we need to modernize to be on par with any possibility in terms of any attack.
All right, that point has been made. Speaking about modernizing, earlier on we were in conversation with Dr. Michael Masiapatu, who is the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority. He says that they have applied for around 2.9 billion rand to try and modernize monitoring the borders and so forth. They only got about 410 million, and some of that money actually came from Makara as well. But to the point that's raised here, I asked him, and just quickly want to play this clip as well, what his take is on the underfunding of the SANDF and how that has an impact on the work that the Border Management Authority needs to do. Just take a listen to what he had to say.
If you look at our land borders, we are talking about 4,470 kilometers. It is a stretch from Mozambique, then that runs through, obviously, into Zimbabwe, into Botswana, and into Namibia. That is 4,470. The financial challenges that we have in the law enforcement state or in the law enforcement space is very much problematic. And that is why the vulnerability continues, and that becomes a problem. But we do believe that as the fiscus stabilizes, we should be able to be assisted, because the work that we do is very much fundamental for the economic growth of this country.
Yeah. And that goes back to the point that you had raised last week as well, that investors are also looking for a country that is secure. But there's the underfunding of law enforcement.
Look, it's very correct. Look, for any company or any international investor to come to a destination, one of the first requirements of that particular investment destination is the issue of defense, security. Now, in South Africa, because we made some wrong policy choices, we forgot that defense is one of the three anchors of state governance. And once you can't defend your citizens, you make them vulnerable, you lose legitimacy as a state, and that is very dangerous. In terms of repurposing of the budget to help the Border Management Authority, there is money allocated to security cluster. We just need to combine efforts between the defense, the police, and the Border Management Authority. If you look at the kit that we're all receiving, it needs us a security cluster to combine efforts so that we can utilize whatever rent and cent of the country to help us manage our porous borders, bring e-border management system, bring e-ports and e-harbor management system so that we can modernize with technology and use less of our human beings and get more of technology. Human beings will only be the response team in case technology shows you something, because technology would not negotiate, technology would not take bribe. It will be just a thermal camera which will drone and show a person who's crossing the border illegally, then the manpower will have to come in.
Yeah. A quick final one. The decision that was taken by SADC with the Summit DRC and the deployment of some of the SANDF soldiers, including the ones from Malawi as well. How far are we with regards to that withdrawal?
So far, the withdrawal will be done in phases because there are some of the equipment we need to bring back to the country. So part of what both SADC and the East Africa community has agreed, it was on the cessation of hostilities and immediately start to repair the Goma airport so that our soldiers can take off from Goma, our equipment can be brought back from Goma. But those details are dealt with by the Chief of the National Defence Force and were represented in the SADC by our Minister, Honorable Angie Motshekga. So they are dealing with those particular aspects, but it will be done in phases. It will not be abrupt or
So we don't know
once-off.
when the first withdrawal is going to take place as yet?
Well,
No.
I'm sure once we have repaired the Goma Airport, we have SAMI DRC, because we're on the mission on behalf of SADC and UNESCO, the United Nations, in terms of resolution 2098 of the Security Council. So once they've concluded as those two institutions to repair and do everything, I'm sure the first team will come. The minister will be in a position, or either the presidency, to announce when that will start to happen.
Thank you so much for your time. Dakota Legoete is the Defense and Military Veterans Portfolio Committee chairperson.